Have you ever lived your whole life thinking someone you loved had died only to discover decades later they were alive all along? It was a quiet spring morning in 1974 when tragedy struck the Campbell family. The rising sun had just started to warm the farmhouse outside Willow Creek, Missouri. Inside, Clara was making pancakes while little Daniel, barely 3 years old, chased his toy train along the kitchen floor. John, her husband, was out tending to the animals. 9-year-old Evelyn, bright-eyed and always curious, was still in bed, drowsy from reading late into the night. No one saw it coming. A faulty wire in the attic, a spark, a sudden explosion of smoke. Within minutes, the entire house was engulfed. Clara screamed for her children. Evelyn bolted awake, coughing and stumbling through the thick, choking air. She remembered grabbing her little brother's tiny hand, trying to pull him with her, but he was scared and he slipped from her grasp. The last thing she saw was Daniel turning back toward the living room, crying for their mother. Then she was outside, and he wasn't. The fire crews arrived too late. They couldn't find a trace of Daniel. Not a body, not a footprint, only ashes. The loss shattered them. Clara wept herself to sleep every night. John blamed himself silently, growing more distant until, one day, he simply left. Evelyn carried the guilt like a stone in her chest. She'd always wondered, if she had just held Daniel tighter, just screamed louder, could she have saved him? But Daniel wasn't dead. He had wandered out of the house, disoriented, covered in soot, and barely breathing. 2 miles down the road, a trucker named Carl found him curled up beside a fence post, shaking, silent, his memory blank. Carl flagged down help. Daniel, unidentified and too young to speak, clearly was taken in by child services. In a system that was overburdened and underfunded, he slipped through the cracks. No one connected him to the house fire. They renamed him David. Adopted by a kind, quiet couple from Omaha, David grew up with questions that were never fully answered. His parents told him he'd been found, that he had no known relatives. They loved him, but they could never give him the story his heart longed for. And somewhere, across state lines, Evelyn carried a grief that never healed. Have you ever carried a question your whole life, never knowing if you'd survive the answer? Evelyn grew up, married a kind man named Walter, raised 2 sons. She became a teacher. Her students often told her she was too gentle for discipline, but they didn't know how much sadness she carried behind her eyes. Every birthday she thought of Daniel. Every time she lit a candle, she whispered his name. By her late 50s, she had begun spending time on ancestry websites. It was mostly a hobby, a distraction during retirement, but deep down, she hoped for something impossible. Then one day, it happened. A name appeared, David Monroe, Omaha, estimated age 51. The site flagged him as an extremely close DNA match. She stared at the screen, heart racing. She triple-checked. Missouri birth. Same year. Same blood markers. Could it be? Evelyn wrote him a message, her hands shaking so badly she could hardly type. Hello, David. I don't mean to startle you, but I believe we might be connected in a very personal way. It took David 3 long days to respond. I've always felt like something was missing, like a hole in my memory I couldn't fill. I don't know what to expect, but I'm open to talking. They spoke the next night. David told her what he knew very little. He remembered flames, just flashes. He said he'd always been afraid of fire but never understood why. He remembered a toy train. He remembered a girl holding his hand. Evelyn burst into tears. "That was me," she whispered. "I tried to save you. Oh God, I thought you died." The silence between them was thick with decades of confusion, pain, and impossible wonder. Have you ever felt your heart break and heal at the same time? They agreed to meet. Evelyn drove to Omaha, holding in her lap an old music box that had once been Daniel's favorite. The box had been half burned in the fire, but still played a few delicate notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star," the lullaby Clara used to sing every night. She waited at a cafe. David walked in, tall, quiet, with familiar eyes. He looked at her like he was looking in a mirror built by memory. "Daniel?" she asked. His voice cracked. "I don't remember everything, but I remember you." They embraced, awkward, trembling, and real, two people stitched together by time and truth. That night, Evelyn called her mother. "Mom, sit down. I found him. I found Daniel." The silence on the other end of the line was so deep, Evelyn thought the call had dropped. Then came Clara's voice, trembling. "Say that again." When David walked into Clara's room a week later, she gasped, one hand over her heart. The other reached out, touching his face like she was afraid he'd vanish. "My boy," she whispered. "My baby boy." Tears poured down their faces. "I prayed," she said. "Every night I told God, bring him home, bring my baby home. I never gave up." "I think I've been trying to come home my whole life," David whispered. Can you imagine the moment a mother sees the child she buried standing in front of her, alive? Over the next few months, they rebuilt something time tried to destroy. David met his nephews. He sat in Clara's kitchen while she made pancakes just like she had the day of the fire. He helped Evelyn go through old boxes in the attic. Every photo, every memory was a piece of the puzzle he never had. They had missed birthdays, graduations, Christmases, decades of life. But they had today. And they made it count. One evening, sitting under a willow tree in Clara's backyard, Evelyn turned to him. "Do you regret knowing?" she asked. "Does it make your past harder?" David looked up at the stars. "No, I've lived 50 years wondering who I was. Now I know. I was never lost, just waiting to be found." The fire had taken their home, but fate had returned their family. And sometimes that's the miracle we never see coming, the one that reminds us that hope, even when buried beneath ash and silence, still burns. Dear listener, if this story reached your heart, ask yourself, who in your life have you lost touch with that your heart still remembers? Maybe it's time to reach out. You never know what love might be waiting. If you were moved by this powerful journey of hope, we invite you to like and subscribe to The Kind Story. Every share, every kind comment helps us continue telling stories that remind the world of what truly matters: love, resilience, and the human spirit. Disclaimer: this story is an original work for The Kind Story, created by human writers with AI assistance for formatting or narration. It reflects real-life inspired emotions and adheres to YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies.